Every day, a mother's worst nightmare is coming to life. That's because nearly 400 children a month are bought and sold for sex trafficking here in Georgia.
Channel 2's Public Affairs Director Jocelyn Dorsey talked one-on-one with an advocate who says that those responsible aren't all being held accountable. Jocelyn.
Right, Linda. I met with Oscar winner Mira Sorvino, who's also the United Nations Goodwill Ambassador on human trafficking. She came to Atlanta to raise awareness about the Safe Harbor Fund amendment and how it can impact our state.
It's a constitutional amendment to your state constitution that would grant in perpetuity a fund to be created by taxing adult entertainment venues 1%, the greater of 1% or $5,000 annually to be put into this fund for victims, because even if some of these venues are not directly involved in human trafficking, they contribute to a culture where people buy and sell children. And what this fund would do would be to rehabilitate and restore survivors of human trafficking, specifically, I believe, domestic minor survivors, so kids who have been sex trafficked and in commercial sexual exploitation.
What made you decide to take up this issue? Because this is a tough issue and a lot of people don't want to talk about it and act like it doesn't really exist.
I always have had this sort of social justice passion and this feeling of empathy for people who are being treated like things or others or less than the other, you know, whether it was Jews in the Holocaust or you know, people in the time of slavery, or women who are being oppressed worldwide because of their gender, or, you know, I've always been kind of obsessed with these things, with prejudice and persecution. The gap exists between federal laws, which are generally quite strong about trafficking, and state laws, which were very weak when I started doing this advocacy. Now we have about 50% of states that have safe harbor laws and 50% that don't.
And I think what's surprising is the scale and the magnitude in this country. I mean, we talk about it in other countries, but this country...
Yeah, this is something that we all have to take responsibility for, because it's our children. This is not happening in some other world somewhere else, and I've been in those other places where it's happening. We have many more domestic minors as sex trafficking victims in the U.S. than we do foreign nationals sex trafficked.
Wow.
I'd say we probably have more foreign nationals in labor trafficking, but more of our own American kids being trafficked for sex on our shores. If you find somebody molesting a kid in their house, or a neighbor kid, they will be treated as a sex offender, a pedophile, a terrible, violent, scary criminal. If they are buying the services of a kid, most times it is looked the other way. The new sea change in the way that we look at children in this field is that they are not prostitutes. They are incapable of prostituting themselves. They are being exploited by others, and the criminals are the Johns and the pimps, not the kids. And yet, traditionally, those have been the ones that have paid the price. We now see these kids as victims of the severest form of human trafficking. That's how the UN sees them, that's how the federal government sees them, and we want all states to see them that same way. And Atlanta is well on its way, and Georgia is well on its way to having a holistic view of them that works that way. There still might be a few little kinks in various pieces of legislation being enacted on the ground properly by law enforcement and the criminal justice system, but almost there.